3 a.m. You're staring at the ceiling. Your chest is tight. Your mind won't stop replaying the conversation. You grab your phone. No new messages. You type something. Delete it. That knot in your stomach, that voice screaming, "What if they leave?" That's not love. That's fear wearing a love costume. Now, what if I told you that two guys who literally changed billions of lives had completely different answers to this exact problem? One said, "Love everyone, even your enemies." The other said, "Stop clinging to what you love most." So, which one was right? Plot twist, they were both right. And they point to something stronger together than apart. Today we're going to test the love philosophies of Jesus and Buddha. And by the end, you'll see why the answer isn't choosing between them. It's fusing them together. Let's go. If you've ever felt like modern relationships are a minefield, you're not wrong. Dating apps feel disposable. Instagram fuels comparison. You're told to be secure, but not clingy. To care, but not too much. 2,000 years ago, two teachers looked at this exact human problem. This anxiety, this suffering, this fear of loss, and came up with radically different solutions. Jesus of Nazareth, a Jewish carpenter turned revolutionary preacher, said the answer was radical, unconditional, fearless love. Love so big it includes your enemies. Love so strong you die for it. Buddha, a prince who walked away from everything, said the answer was non-attachment. Stop grasping. Stop trying to control outcomes. Love everyone, while clinging to no one. They weren't addressing different problems. They were solving the same puzzle from different angles. Both of them were rebelling against systems that made people suffer. Both of them saw how fear and scarcity thinking poisoned human connection. Both of them pointed toward a kind of love that sets you free. The question isn't which one was right. The question is, what happens when you combine them? That's what we're about to find out. All right, let's talk about Jesus. Not the Jesus you see on stained glass windows or motivational posters, the actual historical guy, who was kind of terrifying to the people in power. Picture this. You're living in first century Judea. The Romans occupy your land. Your religious leaders are obsessed with purity laws. Who's clean, who's unclean, who you can eat with, who you can't even touch. Society runs on rigid boundaries. You stay with your tribe. You don't mix with outsiders, especially not Samaritans, a group the Jews considered heretics and enemies. Then along comes Jesus, and he tells this story that would have made everyone in the room deeply uncomfortable. It's called the Good Samaritan, and it goes like this. A Jewish man gets beaten by robbers and left half dead on the road. A priest walks by, sees him, and crosses to the other side. A Levite, another religious figure, does the same thing. They worry more about ritual purity than a bleeding stranger. Then a Samaritan, the enemy, stops, bandages the guy's wounds, takes him to an inn, pays for his recovery. Jesus ends the story with a question. Who is my neighbor? The answer, the outsider, the one everyone hated. Not a feel-good story, a demolition charge under tribal boundaries. Jesus was saying, your love can't have boundaries. You can't pick and choose who deserves compassion. You can't love your in-group and demonize everyone else. In the Greek of the Gospels, this love is called agape, unconditional goodwill. The kind of love that doesn't ask, what's in it for me? The kind that extends even to people who want to destroy you. In Matthew's Gospel, Jesus says it plainly. Love your enemies and pray for those who persecute you. Not tolerate them, not be polite to them. Love them. But wait, Jesus also says in Luke's Gospel, if anyone comes to me and does not hate father and mother, wife and children, brothers and sisters, yes, even their own life, such a person cannot be my disciple. That sounds insane, right? Here's what's happening. Jesus is using hyperbole, extreme language to make a point. In Semitic rhetoric, hate often means love less by comparison. What he's really saying is, stop loving people as possessions. Stop loving your family because they're yours. Stop treating them like extensions of your identity, like props in your personal story. That's not love, that's ownership. When Jesus says, hate your father and mother, he means, stop treating them like they belong to you. Love them as free human beings with their own lives, not as characters in your ego's movie. Same energy as what Buddha teaches about non-attachment, actually. This was radical. This wasn't be nice to people who are nice to you. This was love the people who hate you, who hurt you, who want you dead. And what happened to people who loved like this? Many paid a heavy price, persecution, even martyrdom. Jesus himself was executed, because love without boundaries is dangerous to systems built on control, fear, and division. Fast forward to today. We don't live under Roman occupation. We're not worried about purity laws. But we still build walls, don't we? We still decide who's worthy of our compassion based on politics, religion, social status. We still cross to the other side when someone makes us uncomfortable. We still love conditionally. And that's where the grip in chest feeling comes from. Because conditional love is fear-based love. It says, I'll love you if you meet my standards, if you don't betray me, if you stay the same. That kind of love is actually control dressed up as care. Jesus' teaching flips that. It says, love fearlessly, love generously, love like the supply is infinite, because it is. Stop asking, do they deserve it? Start asking, what would love do right now? That's the Jesus move. Radical, risky, revolutionary. While Jesus was preaching this in Galilee, 500 years earlier, on the other side of the world, someone else had figured out the other half of the equation. Let's rewind about 500 years before Jesus. In the ancient Shakya kingdom, near the Himalayan foothills, a guy named Siddhartha Gautama, born into royalty, raised in luxury, walks away from his palace, his wife, his newborn son, and goes searching for the end of suffering. Renunciation wasn't rejection, it was a quest to end suffering for all, including his family. After years of extreme asceticism and meditation, he figures it out. He becomes the Buddha, the awakened one. And his core teaching? Suffering comes from grasping, or in Pali, the language of early Buddhist texts, tanha, thirst, craving. The desperate need to hold on to things that are always changing. You love someone, so you try to control them, make them stay, make them love you back the way you want. You cling to the relationship like it's a life raft, and that grasping becomes suffering. The Buddha said, let go, not stop caring, not become cold and detached. Let go of the grasping, the neediness, the illusion that you can control outcomes. There's a parable that nails this. Hunters once set a trap for monkeys by placing sweet rice inside a jar with a narrow neck. The monkey slips its hand in, grabs a fistful, and suddenly it's stuck. Freedom is a single movement away. All it has to do is open its hand, but it won't. It would rather stay trapped than lose the rice. That, the Buddha said, is us. Clinging to pleasure, status, relationships, control. Anything we think will save us. And the tighter we grip, the more trapped we become. The Buddha didn't tell us to stop loving. He taught us to love without grasping. Most people misunderstand this completely. They think non-attachment means indifference, cold, distant. I don't care about you because attachment causes suffering. Nope. The Buddha taught metta, loving kindness, boundless goodwill toward all beings. Not possessive love, but genuine care. As the Metta Sutta teaches, may all beings be happy and secure. He taught karuna, compassion, the wish for others to be free from suffering. He taught mudita, sympathetic joy, happiness at others' success even when it doesn't benefit you. And he taught upekkha, equanimity, staying steady when things don't go your way. These are the 4 Brahma Viharas, the divine abodes. This is love, with open hands. You care deeply, you act with compassion, you support people fully, and you don't collapse when they leave, when they change, when things fall apart. Because you're not grasping, you're loving the reality of this moment, while releasing the fantasy of control. Modern relationships reveal this pattern everywhere. You feel that suffocating anxiety, the "I need them to text me back or I'll lose my mind" feeling. That's grasping. You try to change someone, fix them, make them behave the way you want. That's grasping. You spiral because you can't control what someone thinks about you. That's grasping. And the Buddha would say, that's the problem. You're not loving the person. You're loving the idea of the person, the version in your head, the future you're trying to force into existence. In early Buddhism, real love is free of grasping. It doesn't demand. It doesn't need anything in return. It says, I love you, and you're free. Two teachers, two continents, two completely opposite approaches. Or so it seems. This is where everything changes. On the surface, these teachings seem like opposites. Love harder versus let go. Attachment versus detachment. But they're actually attacking the same enemy. Fear-based love. So here's the twist neither side saw coming. Jesus saw people suffering because their love was too small, wrapped in tribal boundaries, choked by fear of the other, rationed like it was scarce. Buddha saw people suffering because their love was too tight, clinging, grasping, crushing the very thing they were trying to hold. Jesus said, make love bigger. Buddha said, make love looser. Same war, different weapons. What was Jesus rebelling against? A system where love had conditions, where you only cared for your tribe, where fear of the other justified cruelty and exclusion. His teaching was, stop making love scarce. Stop acting like compassion is a limited resource you have to ration. Love is infinite. Give it freely, fearlessly, without keeping score. What was Buddha rebelling against? A system where people suffered because they couldn't let go, where grasping for status, for permanence, for control caused endless anxiety and pain. His teaching was, stop grasping, stop trying to freeze reality. Everything changes. Love within that truth. Don't fight it. And here's where it gets powerful. What if you could love with the fearlessness of Jesus and the freedom of Buddha? What if you loved people fully, while holding them loosely? What if you gave everything, while grasping nothing? That's not a contradiction. That's the whole point. Let me clear up two myths right now. Agape isn't be a doormat, it's love with a backbone. Detachment isn't careless, it's clingless. Let me give you a metaphor. Imagine holding a butterfly. If you clutch it too tight, you crush it. If you don't care at all, it flies away and you never experience its beauty. The skill is holding your hand open, so the butterfly can rest there, but also leave whenever it needs to. Or to put it even simpler, grip kills. Apathy starves. Open hands let love breathe. That's the fusion. You love with an open palm. You care deeply, Jesus-level care, the kind that shows up, that sacrifices, that acts with compassion. But you don't grip. You don't demand. You don't collapse when things change. You trust. You let go. You release the outcome. And that's where real freedom lives. Now this raises a wild question. Did Jesus and Buddha's teachings ever cross paths? Scholars debate this. We know there was contact between the Greco-Roman world and Buddhist India. Alexander's conquests, the Silk Road, Greco-Buddhist kingdoms in places like Bactria. Some historians think Christian monasticism borrowed from Buddhist practices. Others think it's coincidence, similar problems producing similar solutions. We explored this connection in our video, Was Jesus a Bodhisattva? And the parallels are wild. Early Christian monasticism, Buddhist meditation practices, even the concept of selfless compassion, eerily similar. The parallels are fascinating. The evidence is suggestive, not conclusive. But maybe that's not the point anyway. Maybe the point is that when you strip away the cultural packaging, when you go deep enough into the human heart, you find the same wisdom. Love without fear. Love without clinging. Love that sets you free. Jesus and Buddha were both pointing at the same moon, using different fingers. And now, 2,000 years later, we get to use both. So how does this actually work? How do you love like this in real life, in the messy chaos of modern relationships? Let me show you. All right, philosophy is great. But you can't date a philosophy. Let's make this real. Imagine you're dating someone. Things are going well, you really like them. Maybe you're even falling for them. But there's this nagging anxiety. You notice you're checking your phone constantly. If it were urgent, the universe wouldn't hide it behind 3 gray dots, right? But you check anyway. You're analyzing their texts, wondering if they feel the same way, trying to figure out where this is going. And underneath all that, fear. Fear they'll leave, fear you're not enough, fear of wasting your time if it doesn't work out. That fear makes you grip tighter. You get clingy. You need reassurance. You start subtly, or not so subtly, trying to control the relationship. Steering conversations, testing their commitment, manufacturing situations to see if they really care. You've been there, right? Okay, now let's apply both teachings. What would Jesus do? Jesus would say, love fearlessly. Stop treating this person like a scarce resource. Stop acting like your heart can't handle loss. Stop making love conditional on them behaving the way you want. Show up fully. Be generous with your affection. Be honest about how you feel. Be kind even when you're scared. Love them like they're already free, because they are. What would Buddha do? Buddha would say, let go of the grasping. You don't own this person. You don't control the future. You can't force this relationship into the shape you want. Think of it like the moon and the earth, constant care, no gripping. The moon doesn't cling to the earth. It just orbits, present but free. Or as the early Buddhist texts remind us, all conditioned things are impermanent. That's not pessimism. That's reality. What you can do? Love them right now in this moment without attaching to a specific outcome. Stop refreshing your phone. Stop trying to read their mind. Stop spiraling about what might happen. Practice metta, genuine goodwill. Practice upekkha, equanimity when things don't go your way. Release the need to know. Release the need to control. Trust reality to unfold. Real talk. Sometimes we think we're loving someone when we're actually just loving how they make us feel about ourselves. You're supportive of your partner because it makes you feel like a good boyfriend. You're there for your friend because it makes you feel needed. You give advice because you like feeling wise. That's still using people. That's narcissism in a love costume. Real love, the kind Jesus and Buddha both taught, says, love them for them. Not for how it reflects on your self-image. Not for the validation you get. Not to feel like a good person. Love them because they're real, because they matter, because they're free. Not because they make you feel a certain way. The fusion in action? You love them deeply, you're present, you're kind, you're honest, you show up. And you're okay if they leave. Not because you don't care, not because you've detached. Because you love the real person, not the fantasy. Because you're not grasping. Because you trust yourself to be okay no matter what happens. You say, I want this, and I won't force it. And weirdly, that's the most attractive thing in the world. Because when you stop needing someone, when you stop gripping, you stop suffocating them. You give them space to actually choose you, freely. And if they don't, you're heartbroken, sure. You grieve, you feel the loss. But you don't collapse. You don't spiral into, I'm not good enough, or I'll never find love, because your worth wasn't dependent on them staying. That's love with open hands. That's the Jesus-Buddha fusion. Fearless care, wise non-clinging. Now, one critical thing. Non-clinging isn't boundaryless. Boundaries protect love from turning into control. Yours and theirs. You can love someone deeply while saying, I won't accept this behavior. You can be compassionate while walking away from what hurts you. Open hands doesn't mean weak hands. Here's a practice you can try right now. I call it the open palm check. Before you send that text, before you have that conversation, before you make that decision, pause. Name the fear. What am I actually afraid of? Breathe for 5 counts. In, out. Unclench your hands. Physically open your palms. Feel the release. Speak one honest sentence. Not the manipulative version. Not the fearful version. The true version. Then act. Not from neediness, not from scarcity, not from fear. From love. From trust. From freedom. And if you need to set a boundary, use this I feel, I need, I will, if that need isn't met. Simple, clear. Protects you without controlling them. That's the practice, and it works for friendships, family, work relationships. Anywhere you catch yourself grasping. Open the fist. Love with the palm. Fearless. Free. That's the Jesus Buddha way. So let's come back to where we started. That 3 a.m. anxiety, that grip in your chest, that voice that won't shut up. What if the answer isn't love harder or care less? What if the answer is both at the same time? Jesus and Buddha weren't teaching opposite things. They were teaching complementary truths. Jesus teaches you to love fearlessly, to give without keeping score, to care for enemies, to show up fully even when it's risky. Buddha teaches you to love freely, to release the grasping, to trust impermanence, to stay steady when things fall apart. Put them together, and you get something powerful. Love that's both fierce and free, passionate and peaceful, all in and okay with letting go. You love with open hands. And that's not weakness, that's mastery. Because the truth is, the strongest love doesn't grip, it doesn't demand, it doesn't collapse under pressure. It holds space, it stays present. It lets people be free. And weirdly, that's when real connection happens. When you stop trying to control the outcome, people can finally breathe around you. They can be themselves. They can choose you. Not because they're trapped, but because they genuinely want to. There's a line that captures this perfectly. Attachment says, be mine. Love says, be well. That's the difference. Attachment needs you to stay, to behave, to validate me. Love wants you to thrive, to grow, to be free, even if that means leaving. Jesus and Buddha were both pointing toward that kind of love. And maybe, just maybe, they were both pointing at the same truth, the same moon, the same deep reality about how humans are meant to connect. We'll never know for sure if their teachings crossed paths, if there was some hidden exchange of wisdom along the Silk Road, if Jesus sat with Buddhist monks during those missing years. We covered that in a previous video if you want to go deeper. But I think that's the wrong question anyway. The right question is, what if they were both right? What if you don't have to choose? What if you can love like Jesus and let go like Buddha? What if the third path, the fusion, is the one that actually sets you free? Now look, is there more to this than we can fully grasp? Is divine love, Buddha nature, whatever you want to call it, bigger than our concepts? Probably. Yeah. But we don't need to solve the cosmic mystery to practice love today. We don't need perfect understanding to take the next step. Look, I'm going to be real with you. I've failed at this 1,000 times. I've been the person gripping too tight. I've been the person who made love conditional. I've been the 3 a.m. phone checker spiraling about what someone meant by a text. And every single time, it was because I forgot this one thing. Love is infinite. Control is illusion. So if you're struggling with this, yeah, me too. We're figuring it out together. Try it. Next time you feel that grip in your chest, that anxiety rising, that need to control, pause. Breathe. Open your palm. Love fearlessly. Love freely. And see what happens. If this video messed with your brain in a good way, hit subscribe. We're doing a whole series on East meets West philosophy, and you're not going to want to miss it. Drop a comment below. Which teaching resonates more with you? Jesus' fearless love or Buddha's wise non-clinging? Or are you team fusion like me? Thanks for watching. Stay curious, stay wise. And remember, love like Jesus, let go like Buddha. See you next time.